and Jambalambles. The GM had an existential crisis over running Monster Hearts and then had an emotional breakdown. So sessions canceled and the therapy costs have increased. Welcome back.
Dude, when you said you were gonna make it subtle, I was expecting more than that, brother.
Listen, don't say anything else. Keep it as is. Say nothing further. Hey, listen. Actually, it's a little bit of a self-dig also. It's a little bit of a self-dig too. I feel like you should.
Fair enough. I was like, I wonder what he's gonna say when he says subtle. I was like, oh, never mind. Oh my fucking god, that's so good, dude. I love that.
Listen, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I tapped out of running because existential breakdown. So, I can't say that much.
Did you? When'd you do that?
3 weeks ago. We had the first week that we did Monster Hearts. We were trying to figure out what day we were going to play. And I was like, either way, I'm not running on Monday, whether we play Monster Hearts or not. Because I'm just not having it right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I really didn't notice that.
What do you mean didn't notice it?
Like I didn't think anything of it. I thought you were just like, well, I've sort of committed to playing Monster Hearts, so if we don't do it, I'm just not going to run. Like I didn't prep.
No, because I said that before we made the plan.
Okay. I don't know what I was thinking then.
I don't know. You're getting your timelines out of whack, apparently. Well,
now, I mean, we're going to talk about it, but now I want to know about this.
About what?
What happened? What happened?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because like struggling with the game that you're running or the system you're running. I mean, there was also some emotional stress IRL stuff that made me want to not necessarily run too. But yes, we're focusing on the struggling with the RPG element to this. Welcome back, dudettes and duvets. Yep, duvets.
Duvets, yeah, comforters.
I was trying to think of you do dudette for. I was trying to think of a non-binary dude like a dude, but dude and they don't. You know what I'm saying?
Dude and my guy, if you are from New York, are gender neutral terms, and I ain't gonna hear anything about it.
It was for the joke. It was for the joke because people say dudette sometimes. It was just to extend the joke. That's all it was.
I know. Don't get on the horse. Get off the horse. This just set me off personally.
Off the horse. I know. Get off your fucking horse. Relax. Put him back in the stable.
No.
Hold that bitch.
No, you don't get to be like, you don't get for me to say rules light system and you're like, for 2 seconds in our last episode, and then I get mad about this one thing that affected me personally. You don't get to shut me up for it.
Listen, this isn't RPG related, so.
Oh my god.
At least my complaint was RPG related.
I mean, it's Monster Hearts.
Sure. Yeah, sure. All right, fair enough. I guess. Anyway, how you doing, duvets?
Bidets, how you doing?
Bidets and duvet. Oh, wait, that's a good one, though. I like that.
That's not bad. Actually, hold on.
Instead of guys and girls, bidets and duvets.
That kind of cooks. Hold on, pause.
People are going to be like, why does he? I just imagine some really big YouTuber, like 7 million followers, some shit. And they're like, what up, my bidets and duvets? And people being like, why does he call his fans bidets?
Oh, I will fucking kick down a door and start a fist fight.
Because who is that? What's his name? My brain wants to say Philip DeFranco. That's the actor. There's a Philip. Who's the YouTuber? Does the interviews all the time? I can't think of his name. I remember I watched a video of him. Philip. Oh man.
Is it not Philip DeFranco?
No. Oh, it is Philip DeFranco. Isn't that the actor though? Or do they just have the same name? Wait, what?
Are you not thinking of James Franco?
Maybe I'm thinking of
his
James
brother?
Franco. I don't know. Now I don't know anymore. All right. Anyway, doesn't matter. I just was all the point I was bringing up is that he starts his video with "What's up, beautiful bastards," which I feel like is a good neutral, weird way to start.
Yeah.
So I was getting that there. I guess I was thinking of James Franco. I guess he was being subjected to my white boy merging effect. There's a lot of actors in Hollywood that are just singular white boy smashed together in my head.
That for years was Mark Wahlberg and Matt Damon.
That's a good one. I totally get that one for sure. Even when they're not even remotely close to each other, sometimes they still get smashed together, and I'm like, I don't know why. I'm just telling you.
Oh,
you know
brother, when I was fucking young, Willem Dafoe and Kevin Bacon were the same person to me.
Well, that's a weird one.
I know. I have no idea why. It just...
Yeah, I wonder what associated those two together. That's a weird one.
I don't know.
Okay, then.
I think it's because they both have really flat faces.
Yeah. They do have odd faces, both of them, don't they?
A little goblin-esque, yeah.
Little goblin-y, yeah.
Goblinoid.
It works. It works great for William Dafoe, though. It's kind of his jive.
That's true.
That and his gigantic schmeat, apparently.
I did hear about that.
I love when people huge hog. I love when that comes up. It's just like, why is that a thing? Okay, like why is it something that came up?
Great question.
It was for a sex scene or something. It was just like, okay.
Somebody like, guys, what are we doing here?
I don't know. Anyway, now that we're really far afield of anything at all, honestly. Welcome back. What are we talking about? I don't know, whatever the title says, that's what we're talking about. The titles are not decided ahead of time. Struggling with the game you're running is what I'm talking about, but not... When I say the game, I'm not really talking about the campaign as a whole. I'm more specifically saying struggling with the actual system mechanics of the system that you have chosen to run. I'm not talking about like, oh, the campaign's dragging and the pacing is bad because my players are doing X, Y, and Z, or oh, things have gotten awkward because I put myself in a narrative like Gordian knot or something. I'm specifically saying the system, the mechanical system, is not cooperating with me, the GM, and how I'm trying to run it. That's what I'm talking about very specifically. It's kind of a narrow, I'm referring to sort of a narrow band of frustration.
Yeah, you mean coming up to friction, coming up against friction on rules within the rule system that you otherwise like.
Yeah, like if you're playing a video game and you're fighting with the controls, right? You're not complaining about the game, broadly speaking, but the controls are a frustration that is making it harder to enjoy the rest of the game, even if you probably like the rest of it.
Are you someone, when you were younger, like you didn't give a shit about button remapping, but now that you're older, you're like, nope, I'm remapping literally every game I play. I don't give a fuck. I know how I like. You just kind of become like an old curmudgeon.
No, I'm still pretty neutral on button remapping. I will leave them like 90% default most of the time. I very rarely remap. And the reason I don't do that is because for most games, the devs have gone through a lot of testing to figure out what button layout they wanted to go with. And there's probably a valid reason that they made most of those decisions. And I find myself often in a more successful position if I just struggle a little bit up front to get used to something than try and remap it to what I want, because the remapping will create new problems that can sometimes be worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
The exception being MMOs. MMOs, I remap everything I fucking want. But that's kind of a weird genre. Like, MMOs as a genre are kind of like, they expect you to remap all the buttons, so the layout is kind of shit by default on purpose. Because they're like, we know you're gonna fuck with it no matter what we do, so just make it. They give you the most basic usable shit and then just let you fix whatever. But no, for most games, I don't touch them very often. I know a lot of people go crazy with remapping their fighting game button layouts, and that really confuses me. I don't know. That just doesn't seem worth it to me. Granted, I don't play with a fight stick. Right? I play on controller, which it tends to be less of an issue, I feel like, on controller. So I get it a little bit more with the fight stick, but yeah, I don't know.
So, I mean, I don't typically do it for fighting games because okay, it's weird. I am aware of that, like, this was designed for a very specific reason when it comes to fighting games. I don't know what it is. I think my brain just kind of goes, okay. I feel like they probably had a certain design scheme in mind, but like with RPGs, I remap pretty regularly. And if I'm remapping something, I have
turn-based games. I don't care. I'll remap pretty normally. I'll remap quite a bit.
Oh, turn-based, I don't typically care because like I have time to futz with a thing. You know, like I don't feel the pressure to
turn-based. I usually remap for comfort.
Okay.
Just like comfortability, position of hands or whatever.
Okay, yeah. So no, for me that's action games. Like I have three basic action game layouts. I have DMC, Dark Souls, or fucking oh god. Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
It depends on how many buttons I have to play. If I got to press a lot of buttons, it's Dark Souls. If I have like 2 or 3 main buttons, I will remap it to DMC. And if it's like really one main button with a dodge, then I will do it Kingdom Hearts style.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is a weird example because Kingdom Hearts basically has like an action menu.
It does. It's like a weird hybridized thing, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that I could compare Kingdom Hearts so much. I know when I was playing Absalom recently, I swapped the dash and the jump button because my brain was just not having it. And I played for quite a few hours before I finally was like, I need to flip these for some reason. But that was the only thing I changed on that game. So, but like for Hades, for example, I've never touched anything.
Did I touch? I don't think I touched anything for Hades. There are games, right? Like if my hands jive with the control scheme, I won't change it. But there are a lot of games where I'm like, something will get on my nerves.
I find there is often a degree of benefit to figuring out what the devs were trying to do. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try, right? I'm not going to change something off rip, right? But more often than not, I find myself doing it at some point.
Anyway, that's not about RPGs.
No.
That being said, you can change the controls in RPGs, which is to say the rules. Before any of that, hit follow or subscribe on your platform of choice. And if you'd like to donate, there is a link in the description. Por favor. Por favor.
Por favor.
Por favor. Okay. One more tiny tangent. You watched Drake and Josh, yes?
Yes.
Do you remember the episode when he bought the little Mexican robot and it just kept saying por favor?
I do.
Anytime somebody says por favor, I think of it in that Mexican robot voice, right? Por favor. Por favor. That really weird robotic tone.
Yeah.
I always think of it that way because of that episode of Drake and Josh.
I think the joke that I am reminded the most of in Drake and Josh is the Drake.
Where's the door? Yeah. The door is a good one. That's a good one. There. The door is a classic.
Yeah. Yeah, I he's like, oh yeah, I cut it out before.
Oh. Yep.
Oh
no, actually no, I'm a dirty liar. The joke the joke I definitely bring up the most from Drake and Josh is have a nice day, don't tell me what to do.
Yes.
I say that constantly.
You do say that a lot.
All the time, and it's because
literally
of that episode.
All the fucking time, yeah.
Yeah. Don't tell me what to do.
You know what's funny? I think a lot of people don't realize that's what you're quoting.
No, I don't think anyone does.
I think the vast majority of people just think like, oh, okay, dick. And you're like, he's
doing a bit, but I don't care if they get the bit or not. It's a good enough bit. I don't care. I mean, I don't do it to people that don't know me, obviously, because that would be awkward. Anyway, role-playing games. We can do this. I swear to God.
We can.
We can do this.
Given the notes for this week, I was like, oh boy, we are pushing uncharted territory this time.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, like I said at the beginning. So put yourselves in this mental framework, if you will. You are deciding that you are going to run a new campaign. You're starting from scratch, and you're deciding you're going to run this is mostly going to pertain to you're running a new system that you haven't run before, so you're not that familiar with it, right? That's mostly where this is going to come up. If it's a system you've run a bunch, this is not going to happen as much because you've already run it, so you've already worked through a lot of the issues probably, although it could still happen down the road. For example, if you only ran levels 1 to 10 in D&D and then you finally get to the 10 to 20 range, you might find new problems cropping up that you didn't interact with before. That can happen. But generally, we're talking about I'm running a new campaign and I'm choosing this new system. And you sit down, you start running the game, everything's do and going along, yada hada, do la la. Do la la la, la, do la la.
Brother, please.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge, baby.
Focus up.
Attack
Lock the fuck in.
But it's such a good episode.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so you start running the campaign, and eventually you get to the point where you're hitting a wall with your system of choice. So whatever game you decided, obviously, we're assuming you're running it, so you read it carefully and whatever, but you start running it and you're hitting a stopping point, not a stopping point, but you're hitting frustrations. You're running into problems over and over again that you feel like is making the game either difficult to run or just not producing the result you want in terms of style of game or style of narrative or even just like response from players. And so then you have to go, okay, how do I handle this problem? And the reason this idea was spurred on for me is because we talked with some friends. So first of all, we talked with Cassie. What was it? Was that last week or 2 weeks ago? I forget. 2 weeks ago. And she mentioned some struggle points running Kane. Although the struggle points that she mentioned with Kane, as I said, didn't surprise me. They were exactly what I was expecting would come up. And then we also have Sarah running Monster Hearts, who is also having some struggle points. And funnily enough, also we have players who are finding some struggle points with Monster Hearts on the player side, feeling like there's information there that they're either missing or not understanding. And it's because the Monster Hearts book, as we've talked about before, is a little sparse and assumes a degree of pre-knowledge to play the game. So between talking to those two, and then also me running Fabula and having some of my own struggle sessions running Fabula, I find myself contemplating how to solve the struggle sessions, because it was getting to the point where I was getting annoyed running the game, where I was like, God damn it, will you just fucking do what I want you to do? Or will you just work the way I think you're supposed to work? And for me, there's two kinds of struggle I'm coming up across, and I think these are probably going to be the two most common kinds of struggle. I'm sure there's lots of other little permutations of this, but I feel like the two main ones are going to be a misinterpretation of the rules, like a misunderstanding of the rules, or the struggle is going to be you're just butting heads with the design of the game. Like, you know how it works, you know what the game wants you to do, but you don't want to do what the game wants you to do, right? Those I feel like are going to be the two main walls you're going to run into generally if you're running a game and feeling like there's frustration. I don't know if there's another potential scenario that you could think of, Isaiah, but I felt like those were the two that made the most sense to me.
No, those are definitely the two biggest ones. It's I know how it works, but how it works is not 100% lining up with my vision, and there's friction now. Or this is worded kind of weirdly, and there is like I have ruled it a certain way up to a certain point, and then someone has eventually asked the question of like, this feels weird, and then you look it up and found out you're doing it wrong. So now you're like, okay, well, we've set a precedent.
Yeah.
Do I run it or not? Like, yeah, there's very little winning in that situation. I'm running into that a lot.
Yeah, so to give an example of the kind of two main scenarios. So in terms of just butting heads with the system, for me running Fabula, I keep butting up into this position where I really want Fabula to have some kind of a skill system, and it doesn't, and that's just feeling a little annoying for what I'm trying to do a lot of the time. I'm sort of accepting it at this point and like moving on a little bit, but it has this element of frustration where I'm like, it's a little weird because kind of rules as written baseline, you have 4 stats, and the stats are from a D6 side. Your stats are just a die. There's no flat modifier, and it goes from a D6 to a D12. And if you have a character who's an investigator and a character who's a wizard, there's a good chance that they're going to have some permutation of a D8 and a D10 in their insight willpower. Like, it doesn't really matter which two, but likely they'll have, like, investigator might have it in the insight, and the wizard might have a D10 in willpower, but you know, they're probably going to have a D10 D8 combo in those two. So when those two characters go to like suss out a scene or suss out a room, mechanically the wizard is just as good as the investigator at baseline. Now, there is Fabula points in Fabula Ultima, which makes it that the investigator character can probably invoke their rerolls much easier, which will likely make them, you know, have a better chance. But baseline, taking the Fabula part out, they're the same, and that has come up a couple of times and has felt a little awkward to me. Because I feel like, you know, Goromaru the sword guy should have some kind of bonus to doing thing with sword or knowing thing about sword, but mechanically he doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So that's just me butting heads. I know the game doesn't work that way, but I'm butting up against it in that I kind of want it to work that way. And I'm kind of just accepting that one and moving on for the most part. That's kind of how I'm handling that, because it's not enough of a problem that I feel like I need to go out of my way to deal with it, if that makes, you know, sense.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where you want it to feel special, you want it to feel interesting, but it just kind of isn't from that avenue. Like, yeah, I get that. I can't even say I've found success with this. The only thing that I've like
tried,
not even tried, but like thought about recently, because, you know, now that I'm at the halfway point in Lancer, you're running into that situation where, again, everybody's just passing. So like, you know, it's like, okay, well, do I make some checks harder for some players, but like that doesn't feel fair at times? Like, you know, it's like, if there's something to do with like warfare, you could just give Goro the lowest roll every time, but
right. That,
like,
and that's another element of Fabula, is that it does recommend sort of messing with the difficulty level of things in terms of what number they have to beat, which is valid. And I wasn't probably acknowledging that element of the system as much as I could have been before. So I'm trying to be more mindful now. Lancer's a particularly weird one though, because you can't even move the DC.
Yeah, no, they are set to 3 different modes with 4 different permutations, and at some point they're just going to succeed. There's just not a lot you can do.
Yeah, I don't have a strong recommendation on that one. Especially, I'd have to be definitely in the sauce with Lancer, I feel like, to really have any kind of helpful answer for that system specifically. But that's me butting up heads against Fabula. From the misunderstanding angle of Fabula, a major misunderstanding I have is what constitutes a conflict and what doesn't, and why that actually matters. So I was under the impression, based on the very beginning of the conflict chapter in Fabula Ultima, that a conflict is kind of just any scene where it's like the tension is high, we are tracking things on a more moment by moment basis, and we need to be more granular with, what's happening. That's not actually the case. Because the reason I thought this is that the beginning of the chapter says all of the following might make good conflicts, and then it lists out a couple bullet points. It says a chase scene amidst. I did know what the word is. I don't know why I couldn't say it there. A chase scene amidst the narrow city alleys, an infiltration scene where some characters sneak past enemy surveillance, a skirmish between groups or a fight against a monster, a large-scale battle involving clashing armies from enemy kingdoms, a tense audience with a powerful figure, and a duel between two ancient rivals. Okay, that says all of these might make for good conflicts. That list made me think, okay, so anything that's like that is a conflict. That's not actually what the game is saying. What the game is saying is these situations could be conflicts, but are not always conflicts. Mm-hmm. A conflict, mechanically speaking, in Fabula, is only when initiative is rolled. Only when you are tracking turn order, that is a conflict. So in a somewhat D&D to D&D context a little bit, a fight in D&D, right? That's what it's saying. Like a fight is a conflict. In Fabula, what the conflict can be is a little more open, but the idea is you are mechanically saying, okay, we need to worry about turns and rounds, and we're tracking things on a very tight minutia basis. That's a conflict. If you are not making an initiative roll and tracking turns, it's not a conflict. It could be any one of those scenarios, but it is not a conflict by default. And the reason that matters is because certain rules change in a conflict. For example, if you are in a conflict and you attack something, you're taking the attack action, right? When you take the attack action, you make an accuracy check where you can add a lot of flat bonuses to your roll, right? So for your character, Isaiah, Goromaru gets like a +6 when he makes an attack roll, right? I think it's +6.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like a plus. No, now it's like a +14. But yeah, it's a high number. No, his damage.
Not your damage. That's your damage. We're talking about your
+6.
The accuracy check. But you keep doing that. So when you're rolling to attack, you have a +6 for the accuracy check. That is the attack action, which you can only make in a conflict. If you are not in a conflict scene and you attack somebody with your sword, that's just a normal check, which just means you would roll your dex plus might, or in your case, your dex plus dex, whatever your weapon's like stat roll is. You only roll that like a normal check because you're not in a conflict, so it's not an accuracy check. And the reason that matters is because mathematically, that +6 is very powerful in terms of the math, in terms of what you need to beat in Fabula for checks. That +6 makes it so that Goro's like never gonna fail a basic standard check. The reason that's okay in a conflict scene is because a conflict scene, we're tracking health bars, turn orders, debuffs, right? We're tracking all the minutia stuff. So Goro successfully attacking a bunch of times in a row is whittling away at something's health. Whereas if you could just solve the problem with a single roll, that +6 is going to throw the math and throw the system out of whack. Another example is the way teamwork works, right? If you're making a group check and you're not in a conflict, the supporting characters have to roll to see if their help is actually helpful. In a conflict, they don't have to roll, but they have to burn their turn, right? They have to burn their action for the round. So the payment being made to assist the leader character in a conflict is your turn. The payment being made to assist the leader character out of a conflict is you have to also make a check to see if you can help or not. That's a big deal, because if you aren't tracking turns and then you don't need to make a check, that means you could just give each other +4s for free all day long with no penalty of any kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to throw the math out of whack again, because the game is not assuming that you can just freely throw around those +4s, no big deal, because that's like kind of a lot. So, and if every character, especially because you guys all have your bonds up to 3 with each other, if one player goes and all 3 of the characters help them, they're getting a +12. Obviously, the +12 is not intended.
Right. And like, here's the thing. I get that. I do. And I understand the reasoning behind it. But I also feel like, I don't know, maybe it just feels like we're farther along in the game than we are. But like, I almost feel like Goro shouldn't be failing a basic D10 check to swing sword. You know what I mean?
Well, the idea is that if you're making a normal check outside of a conflict, it's not just a situation of swing sword. There's probably something else going on there fictionally. Like, it's not, essentially, you're not just putting your full attention on attacking, right? There's probably a little more to it than that. If I'm asking you to swing your weapon outside of a conflict, there's some sort of context that makes it that not using the accuracy check probably makes sense, or the chance of failure being a little bit higher makes sense.
I get what you're saying.
By the way, we're like 25 sessions in.
Fair enough. I get what you're saying. I still kind of hold my stance that like, at that, like, it shouldn't feel like this thing that a character specializes in, is devoted their life to, and is like presumably an expert at. There's just a situation where you're not going to fail a standard D10. Now you can bump the difficulty, and that would sort of be like, oh, okay, you are really good at this thing, but that's now why the difficulty is higher, right? Even for someone like you, this is difficult.
That goes into what the game talks about of like just letting you have it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if it's a situation where it's not a conflict, but Goro is attacking something with his sword, but there's no outstanding circumstances that is really resisting him very much, or the resistance is minor, then the game basically says, I should just give it to you and just let you do it, no roll required. Right? That's the idea, is that you acknowledge what Fabula wants you to do. This is what Fabula has in lieu of the skill system, right? If the game wants you to acknowledge, if it makes sense for the character to just do this because this is their whole thing, then don't make them roll, just give it to them, because they have fictionally set up and justify themselves where this makes sense. So for example, if Goro's just like attacking a rope to like cut it to drop a chandelier or some shit, and there's no reason that there's nothing really perturbing him, then yeah, I'm not going to make you roll for that. You just should get that, because Goro's thing is guy with sword. Whereas if Senna picks up a sword and goes to cut the rope, I might be like, well, you might need to roll on that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, that's what Fabula wants you to do. That's kind of what it wants you to do in lieu of a skill system, because that's kind of what a skill system is representing, right? The idea that if I have a good enough bonus, I'm just going to beat the DC anyway. So Fabula says, don't even set a DC, just let them have it, right? That's where we're at. The idea is that the accuracy check needs to be very specifically for the conflict system, because mathematically, that's how the game's been worked out. And if you go beyond that, basically what was happening is I was giving you guys situations that were way easier than they should have been, because I was doing stuff like giving you those bonuses when I shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. I get what you're saying. I don't know.
The point is, I mean, I'm not really here to argue about whether
that's kind of why I'm not really pushing the point.
Like, makes sense or not. The point I'm getting at, I was misunderstanding the rules, and that was giving me issues on the GM side of the table. But it wasn't a case of me not liking the rules. It was a case of me genuinely misunderstanding the rules. Now I know, okay, if we're not in a turn order, but it's some kind of a tense situation that you need to roll for, you're just making a standard check. There's no other bonuses that are applied. Now, there's the situational modifiers, obviously, also, and those are relevant. And then there's the sliding scale of the DC, or DL in this case, which is also relevant. But those kind of flat bonuses that are reserved for the combat minigame, keep them reserved for the combat minigame. Otherwise, you're making things too easy. The big one where this came up is when you guys fought through the like horde of ghosts.
Yeah.
there was like no scenario where you were going to fail those rolls because of that +6, and you blasted the clock out of the water because of that +6.
We did, yeah.
And that made it way too easy, like way easier than I was. Now, it's a clock, right? I don't expect it to last super long, but you guys blasted through it like faster than I even expected. And it got to the point where I was like, ah, shit, that didn't really work. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it's, again, because I was misunderstanding what the game was trying to get across. So, all that preambling, all said and done, getting to what do you do? So you're running the game, you've gotten to the point of this mental block. I don't really know what to, struggle. I don't know what to call it. You're on the struggle bus. How do you actually respond to it? What do you do? And like, I don't have any perfect solutions. I have, I would say, potential solutions. So I'm just going to kind of go through them and, you know, I'm giving suggestions really is what it comes down to, because ultimately there isn't really a perfect solution for this kind of problem. It's going to be one that has a degree of friction no matter what. And sometimes that degree of friction will vary up and down, will kind of, you know, I guess vary. Yeah, I guess vary was the right word. Right word the first time. All right, so point number 1. This is the easiest, most obvious option here. Just kind of stick with it and give it some time, and it might just click. I don't know about you, but there's definitely been times where I'm like, this shit makes no sense. And then eventually something I did hit a nerve in such a fashion where I'm like, oh, now it makes perfect sense. Okay, now I understand what this wants me to do and how it works. Like, I can't think of a specific example at the moment, but I don't know if you have a similar experience, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes, there are definitely times where that has happened. Now, I will freely say it does not, like, it's not happening right now with Lancer, with my own skill check based problem. I'm just keep smashing my head against this wall and it's never going to stop. I've just sort of accepted that. But I am aware of your, yeah, like it is, yes.
It's that thing to...
The reactions in Monster Hearts for me felt weird at first, but that's because I'd never run the system before. And I was like, okay, this is going to stop feeling weird once I stop thinking about it as much. And now it feels a lot more natural.
Yeah. It's to compare it to like a somewhat similar thing. It's kind of like the idea in a video game where you're trying to nail down a mechanic, and at some point you just do it over and over again, and then you get it one time, and then that one time just like magically unlocks like the holy place. You know, like you're trying to figure out the parry timing, and then you find one enemy that for whatever reason their attack animation makes sense to you, and you figure out what the parry timing is supposed to be based on that enemy, and then from that point on you can parry like much more regular. Is that kind of an idea where sometimes just sticking with it for a little bit longer will make it make sense, because you just need to see it in a specific frame of light. Because, you know, RPGs will often give examples. They'll say like, you know, this mechanic works this way, you know, it does X, Y, and Z. And then they will have a little example readout of like, here's how it would work in play. And sometimes those examples, you read them and go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. But sometimes for whatever reason, the example they picked just doesn't make sense to you personally. Like some element of it did not jive, and there's no real getting around that. But if you play, you will likely run into a scenario while you are playing where the mechanic will come up and it will come up in such a fashion that it makes more sense to you this time around. Like, it didn't make sense in context A, but it makes sense to me in context B, so now I get it, and now you're good, and you can just move on, and that's it. And if you're on the GM side, that can be really good because, or if you're on the GM side, a good way to utilize that is basically go, all right, I don't totally understand this mechanic, so I'm going to make a bunch of scenarios where I, as the GM, have to interact with this mechanic. And then hopefully if I interact with it enough times, I will eventually understand it. That's, basically use your GM power to your own advantage. And also hope that, the players can come along with you in that assistance. Because that can help things a lot too, obviously.
I wish I was that responsible. Typically, if there's something that I'm just butting heads with constantly and I can't get it to stop, it just conveniently shows up less and less.
Well, I don't mean butting heads with constantly. Like, if there's something you've already tried a lot and it's still, for the love of God, just is not happening, that's a little different. I'm saying you've bumped up into the mechanic once or twice, or maybe you read it and you just weren't totally sure, and you go, okay, I'm going to throw it in the game a couple more times to see if I can figure it out. If you're on try number 3 and it's not working, that's one thing. If you're on try number 10 and you're still just not getting it, then yeah, maybe taking it out and just not dealing with it as much is the move. It depends. It's a scale of how confusing it is to you. And this is I'm talking about this on a minutia mechanic by mechanic basis in this context, but this can also kind of just apply to the game more broadly too. Like, you just don't get the game that well, but you just keep running it because you really want to run it. Something about the game makes you really want to run it, and then eventually by session number 10, you're like, all right, I got this shit now. That can happen too. If that doesn't happen, though, we'll get to one of my later solutions. Might be a better option.
So, I think for a lot of people, that perfect encapsulation of that is challenge rating, where you just kind of, you don't get it, but you have to, you literally can't not interact with it in some way, shape, or form. So you kind of just go, all right, well, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of just like, yeah.
Well, I think usually I think challenge rating is a good example of sticking out, because usually what happens is, even if people don't fully get it, because you're right, a lot of people don't fully get it because, I don't know, I think they just describe it really poorly in the book, to be honest. Usually what happens is people stick with it long enough that they come up with their own sort of pseudo understanding of challenge rating that ends up working. Like, they can't explain how challenge rating works verbatim in the rules, but they have a good enough intuition that they're like, I can build a proper challenge rating fight, but I can't necessarily explain to you how, but I know that I've sussed it out enough to make sense of it. That's usually what happens there. And that is basically what I'm saying. You just stick it out and it clicks into place in some kind of a way, and then you get it. Because ultimately, whatever method you use to understand a rule doesn't need to be repeatable, right? It only needs to work for you. You're the only one who needs to understand. So it doesn't matter.
True.
The next most obvious, potential solution to this is just a careful reread, right? Like, just read it again. There's a lot of rules in games that will not make sense on a first read in every game. Like, pretty much every RPG you're going to read, and there will be elements of it on that first read through that you're like, that just doesn't, I just don't, what? And just reread it more carefully. And I'm not saying you have to reread it in the moment or anything like that, but like, maybe you do your first read through, and then maybe when you go to run the game, go like, all right, I want to interact with this mechanic, but I know the first time I read the book, I didn't totally get it. Go back and read that specific bit about that specific mechanic more slowly and just be a little more conscious of it. And then you might be fine. Like, you might have just read past it a little too fast, or it might have just been worded in such a fashion that it just didn't immediately make sense. And then you reanalyze and you're like, okay, it makes sense now. That's pretty much what happened when we were reading Draw Steel, and I just could not make sense of the AoE damage versus the minions.
Yes, yeah.
But I just paused for a second, read it again, and then thought about it a little more slowly, and then was like, oh, I get what they're saying now. You know, they're effectively saying you get, on an individual attack by attack basis, you get more bang for your buck with the lower damage AoE spell. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I really just had to reread it. Like, it wasn't necessarily that confusing. I just had to slow down a little bit. This is something your teachers tell you a lot in school. You know, fucking reread it a little slower. And listen, Miss, I don't want to whip out any specific. I was gonna like say a name of like an actual teacher I had, but I don't actually want to put her on blast because she wasn't necessarily bad.
No one knew. Like,
listen, Miss Rosalina, I get that you were right. Just lay off. I had to make up a name. I don't know.
I had one teacher in high school. She was an English teacher, and she was certainly bipolar. Like, and I know people say that like a lot to like say pretty much anytime someone has behavioral like a
yes
situation going on. But no, she was like, she'd go from super happy, and then you'd ask her a question she didn't like, and it would like ruin her mood for an hour. Like I distinctly remember, there was literally a time where she was like happy and joking, and you know, she was like describing how she like says the days of the week weirdly because the way like where she was raised. Like she says like Monday, Tuesday, like she just, that's how she said it unironically. And
my dad kind of does that.
Yeah, and I remember somebody raised their hand to use the bathroom, and she literally was like, put your hand down, you're not going anywhere. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, or there's times where like if you had like a typo in like the intro to an essay, like in the formatting of the essay, she would lose it. Like red in the face, lose it on you. And you're just like, dude, chill the fuck out.
Yeah, there's no good recourse if a teacher's like that. You just gotta kind of hold that L and pray.
Yep. I had one teacher who couldn't frown for some reason. Like she could be red in the face with
like her
fury.
Face muscles couldn't physically.
I don't know what it was. I know she was capable of not smiling, but she could be red in the face with fury and still be smiling.
That's horrifying. What the fuck,
dude? Like eye twitching, like looking like a crazy teacher, looking like Crocker from Fairly Odd Parents.
Like Crocker,
bro.
Ferris.
Like with like there's the scenes where he's like tweaking out because he sees the fairies and he's smiling, but he's still tweaking. Yeah. Literally that, and she used to drive me insane.
As soon as you said looking like Crocker, I knew exactly what you meant.
Brother,
Ferris. So funny.
Creeped me the fuck out constantly.
That is horrifying. No, that is actually creepy as shit. But yeah, sometimes the reread, just slow the fuck down and read it again. Sometimes that's all you need. But now kind of, I also I forgot to mention, I put these in like kind of a step-by-step order. Like I put them in order of which one you should do first, and then the next one and the next one. Like I kind of put them in a sequence-ish. So they follow somewhat of a flow. But the kind of third point, if you've done the first two, you've stuck it out, you've done a little bit of a reread, figure out if your pain point is coming from misunderstanding or disagreement with the design, because those two issues can have different responses. Because if the problem is that you misunderstand the rule, or rules or, chunk of rules, then you have to figure out, like, why am I misunderstanding it? How can I figure out what is screwing me up here? If your problem is that you just kind of don't like it, like you just disagree with the design, that's a little easier to just assess yourself and go, okay, well, I want Fabula to have a skill system, but it doesn't. How do I respond to that? And in some scenarios, the response might just be let it go and just don't stress it and just understand that that's a thing and then go, okay. Or the response, might end up being fix it yourself. There's a couple of different, if you have the disagreement part is probably going to be easier to fix just by virtue of if you become aware of the fact that, oh, it's not that it's designed poorly. I just don't agree with how they did it. I just don't like it. That's kind of like that's a self-critique situation, and then you can move on. If the pain point is genuine misunderstanding, that's where you got to try and tackle it from, like I said, either sticking with it or rereading it or giving it to somebody else and saying, like, do you get this? Or honestly, a big one for me personally, I don't know about you, going on like YouTube and seeing if somebody has explained it in a way that works better for me, or asking on like Discord or a subreddit or something like that, being like, does this mechanic work like this or does it work like this? Like that's what I did to the conflict rule thing. The way that I was able to finally understand what I was screwing up was that I literally said in the Fabula Discord, I was like, am I misunderstanding how this is supposed to vibe? Like, I basically was like, should I give my players that +6 in this scenario from the accuracy check, or should I not? Like, am I picking up what they're putting down or no? And someone's basically like, no, you're applying conflict rules to non-conflict situations, and that's going to fuck with you. And that when someone sort of re-explained it to me, that wasn't just reading the book, I was like, okay, sure. So once you realize that you're just having a genuine misunderstanding of what it's trying to do, that is where you can potentially, like, look to outside sources to then suss it out further. I don't know if you have a good example of this, but I've heard success stories of doing that method from other people too.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really to add there.
No, you don't have a story about asking somewhere online or something?
I try, so I've never asked online. I've just sort of tried to
read
find
something online or a video or.
Then yeah. I mean, I've never specifically asked about a ruling online, but that's because I very recently got shit like a Reddit. But I have looked things up,
found a video. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people find YouTube videos. If we're expanding to Sage Advice Compendium and looking.
Well, that was what I said at the beginning. I was like, ask or look up something like a
my
video.
bad. Okay, I missed that second part. But yes, I have done that before. I think it's something you should do. It's funny, we were just talking about this. It was one of the few things that I don't fucking hate about the Google AI is that if it tells you something, you can search up where that source was found, so you can tell if it's bullshit or not.
Yes,
or not you can't immediately, but you can do better research to see if it's bullshit.
You can look a little deeper, or you can take what it's describing to you and tighten down your search information based on words it's using.
Yes.
Like, it says a word that you didn't think to use, and you're like, that will help me. Okay, yeah. Okay, so if I use this word, then you get better information, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is making sure to identify your problem more specifically. Like after you've tried and stuck it out a little bit, tried to just kind of push through and see what would happen, and you've reread it to make sense of it, trying to analyze more specifically what the pain point is and where it's coming from can then help you get to a solution better, faster or more succinctly or whatever. So from there, okay, so you've done all that, you figured out your pain point. Then I think you want to assess if the game is actually what you were thinking the game was initially. And what I mean by that, i.e., is maybe you thought the game was a dungeon crawling monster slapping game, but it's really more of a fantasy heroic game, right? This is a little bit of a call out on 5e. We got to call out 5e a little bit. Like you were feeling like, oh, this is going to be a good game to delve into dungeons and track ammo and track torches and, really get into that minutia of the struggle for the main characters. But actually, no, it's a fantasy heroic game, so the characters can ignore most of their resource problems and will just blast through the dungeon unless you design it in such a way that it's going to actually, use up their, the war of attrition and use up their abilities. That can be a tricky one, I think, for people, because a lot of games have a bit of a nasty habit, I would say, of selling themselves as one thing and then not really fully backing up that sales pitch. Or another common one, I think this is more common nowadays than it used to be. Or I think the problem of selling the game one way and then mechanically not backing it up, I feel like used to be more of a problem back in the day. Nowadays, I feel like the problem is they sell the game as a certain kind of vibe, and then the vibe doesn't gel with you in the way that that first read through did. And what I mean by that is like the sales pitch and the aesthetic and the look of it looked really cool, but then the way that they translated it to mechanics for whatever reason is just not clicking with you. And that's where you get into that point. Or maybe the look of the game, like maybe even just the art, gave you a certain kind of idea, but you were misinterpreting, and that's not actually what the game was about, and it wasn't trying to say it was about that, but you just kind of assumed it was. So the point being, if you feel like the game is giving you all sorts of issues trying to run it a certain way, say to yourself, wait a minute, is this game actually about the thing I thought it was? Because if we're, again, our initial premise here was you're running a new campaign with a new system. Presumably, you're building the campaign idea somewhat based on the system. If you had a misinterpretation of what the system was, and then you built the campaign idea around the misinterpretation, then when you go to play the game, the campaign idea and the mechanical game, good chance they will not gel. Right? That all
yeah,
make it sense?
Yes, it does. So I had a thought to an earlier point, and
okay,
because I agree with you when like back in the day, yes, you kind of had this like false, not quite false advertising, but
yeah, it was like that thing where
kind of false advertising, like, you know what I mean, like
yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking of like Vampire the Masquerade being like, it's a game about drama, and then like there's still 200 combat rule pages, and you're like, wait a minute,
yeah,
like that kind of a vibe.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think. Yeah, I mean, I can, maybe I don't have a thought, because I was going to say, like, you don't really have that problem in the, like, the rules not gelling with your vibe, like your initial idea, like when you read them and then you're like, oh, this makes sense, and you run them in practice and they don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, I mean,
it happens.
It does, yeah. I felt like I had a more in-depth thought on that, but I'm like, no, it does happen because I had that problem in Kane. I have that problem in Monster Hearts. I have that problem in a couple places.
Yeah. Usually what it is the descriptive parts of the book, like when it's describing what it's about, have a degree of drama to them, is the only way I can put it. Like they have like a floweriness to the language or like the wording, or like there's a drama to it, and that gets you kind of hooked on the premise. And then mechanics are mechanics, so they're gonna be drier and a little more methodical. But if you aren't aware or looking at the mechanics critically, you might kind of misunderstand how the mechanic is getting the point across for what the game wants to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually did this very recently, speaking of Monster Hearts. I was like, man, it's really weird that the game doesn't have a persuasion-ish ability, right? It doesn't have a way to manipulate somebody without it being turning someone on. Like, that's kind of odd. And then I realized, oh, no, the reason it doesn't is because the way you're supposed to manipulate people, if you want to do it non-sexually, is strings. The game wants you to use strings on people to force that manipulative, I want you to do what I want. Like, that's the persuasion thing. It's the strings mechanic. And I was thinking about strings. I was thinking of strings as almost like a metacurrency bonus. But that's really, it's more than that, right? Strings does more stuff than just, it can just be a bonus, right? It can be like, metacurrency +1 thing, but it does more than that mechanically. And one of those main things is persuading people to do what you want because you have something kind of over them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in contention about that. Like, I feel like there's a perfectly valid reason to say that you can sort of roundabouts turn someone on to just be how to persuade them normally.
Yeah, I don't think the game wants you to do that, though. Like, you might be fine with that, doing it that way. I don't think the game wants you to do that. I think the game is basically saying you have 3 avenues. Turn someone on, use a string against them to get them to do what you want, or just through natural roleplay conversation, get them to just reasonably agree in a situation that makes sense.
So I
think the game is basically saying those are your 3 avenues.
The problem therein is when you directly put it next to shut someone down. Because shut someone down is not just, talk shit to them, right? It can be...
No, it's literally stop them from what they're trying to do. It is shutting them down.
Yeah.
Like whatever bullshit you're trying to pull, I'm not letting you pull it.
Right. So by the broadness of that metric, I feel like turn someone on can just be putting someone onto an idea. Like, it feels like it feels weird to me that one has an inherent limitation on it while the other doesn't.
I think shut someone down has a limitation on it.
Other than you can't physically harm someone, it really doesn't. Because you can use shut someone down to still put your hands on someone. You can shove someone. You can take physical action against someone with shut someone down, but you can't harm them.
But shutting someone down, the limitation of shut someone down is that move only triggers if they're trying to actively do something. If they're trying to go out of their way, make a point, do a thing, you are then negating the thing they are trying to do. If they are not being... basically what I'm saying is it's only really a reactive move. If they are not really proactively doing anything, you can't like stepping out into the crowd and just making fun of somebody is not shutting someone down, right? That's not what that move is. If the person is saying some shit to you and then you clap back, that's shutting them down.
I feel like that limitation exists on all of them then. That's a universal, like turn someone on is... I've asked someone in character to do a thing, they have sort of given me pushback, and now I'm trying to coax them. Where shut someone down is someone is acting against me.
you can go directly to turning them on right from the jump. They don't have to, like, you can say, I walk up and fucking grab a handful of ass and start talking dirty to their ear. They don't have to have said anything prior. You're going straight for a turn someone on move. Right? Like, it can be a situation where you ask nicely and then try and use like sexual manipulation to get something out of them. It can be that, but it doesn't have to be. You can go directly to the turn them on if you want. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing it that way, because that move triggers when you turn someone on. Right? Because you got to remember, the name of the move is also what triggers the, well, not necessarily, it's not quite the name, but like, oh no, I mean, pretty much is. The name of the move is what triggers the move. Right? It's when you shut someone down, roll this ability. When you turn someone on, roll this ability. So the one has a limitation in terms of.
Wait. So wait, you can't just. So no, wait, hold on. Because you can't really just grab some ass to turn someone on, because there has to be an inherent goal in mind. There has to be like a stated, clear goal to the thing. Like
turning them on.
But it's turning them on to a goal, like to achieve a goal. Like you turn someone on to get what you want. Like the reason why I'm saying it like this is because you can just ask that. Like the game is very clear about, you ask questions or you engage in dialogue to a point, and when the dialogue fails, then you do it, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because the way that it describes it in the examples of, characters are talking, character says a thing, and then GM says, it sounds like you're trying to turn them on.
Right. Yeah. You're misunderstanding. I
don't think I am though. Like that's kind of the like.
No, because what the element you're misunderstanding here is what triggers the move, which is when you do it, you do it. This is one of those things I don't think Monster Hearts explains, that Apocalypse World talks about quite a bit. To activate a move, to get the move going, to do the way Apocalypse World phrases it is, to do it, you have to do it. So like, if you're to turn someone on, you have to actively be trying to turn them on. You don't get to say, right, it's the inverse of the D&D situation. In D&D, I roll persuasion is what you start the statement with. You start on that mechanical basis, and then the GM says, okay, here's what happens fictionally. In Apocalypse World and Monster Hearts by extension, you say, I'm doing this thing fictionally. The GM goes, all right, you have triggered turn someone on, because what you are describing to me is trying to turn this person on, ergo the move is now triggered. It's not that you have to like, it's not that the move is like the failsafe. It just happens when it happens. And if it doesn't happen, then that's it. There's just no dice.
Okay, so then answer me this. To that end, turn someone on is kind of the only one that wouldn't be reactive then. To shut someone down is inherently reactive. Keep your cool is inherently reactive. Lash out physically is inherently reactive. Run away is inherently reactive. And gaze into the abyss is inherently reactive.
Gaze into the abyss is definitely not reactive. You can gaze into the abyss anytime you want. Keep your cool is.
Gaze into the abyss is kind of weird, because gaze into the abyss is sort of described as the this is the last option button. So like,
no,
I don't really know what to do, so I'm going to gaze into the abyss to find answers.
No. That's how it might be how you feel about using it, but that's not how it's described. Gaze into the abyss is simply, I'm looking into the darkness to look for an answer that I want. It doesn't have to be a last resort or anything. You're just choosing to do it. You can do it literally whenever. Gaze into the abyss is arguably the least reactive one, because you don't need any other characters present to do it. You can just do it. That's one of the few ones where you kind of have to speak the name of the move to actually do the move. That one's a little like, because Apocalypse World technically tells you not to speak the name of moves. It says just describe what you do fictionally, and then you will trigger the moves. Gaze into the abyss and also Gaze into the psychic maelstrom has the same problem, because it's kind of weird and sci-fi and magical. You kind of have to just say, I'm gazing into the abyss. But No, it doesn't have to be a reaction or a last ditch or anything. Like, you can choose to use it that way if you want to generally use it that way, but it doesn't have to.
I'm not really sure how else, because I can't imagine a situation where you, in any practical conversational sense, use it as an out the gate thing.
Well, easy. Right? You're alone and you're like, I want information and I have a good dark stat and I'm a creepy weirdo character. I'm going to just fuck trying to find answers any other way. I'm just going to gaze into the abyss.
Well, right. So right there, you've.
That's not reacting to anything though. I'm just doing it.
No, but it is a reaction because you're pre-establishing that you are alone. There are no other avenues by which to gain this information.
That's not a reaction.
It is inherently a reaction to a circumstance. It is the effect to a cause.
We're talking about. No, I'm deciding to do a thing based on circumstance, but it's not a reaction. Like, you keep using the word reaction as in I'm reacting to other NPCs or characters.
I just mean that you're reacting to a situation. Like, it doesn't have to have a character in it or not.
But that's all of role playing, period. Like, if you broaden it to a situation, that's just everything you do ever. You can't get that. You can't. That's too broad. Some of the moves are proactive and some of the moves are reactive to the NPCs or characters or whatever around you. And some of them are more directly reactive, like to the moment, and some of them aren't. But like half of that, like lash out physically, you could just walk up on a character and punch them in the mouth. You could be proactive and do that if you want, just cause.
You can't though. Like, I don't know, the way that
lash out. No, you can though. You literally can.
You can't, because the way that lash out physically is described is that it is literally your character is pushed to a breaking point where they have to lash out physically.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. I don't know. No. The paragraph for the chunk of the move itself says, when you lash out physically, roll with Volatile. And then the description below, maybe you're punching someone in the face or biting down with your lupine fangs. Maybe you're shoving your boyfriend off a second-story balcony. Lashing out physically is triggered when you attempt to do real harm to another person. That's it. That's the trigger. You attempt to do harm to somebody. It doesn't have to be any kind of breaking point or anything. That's your personal, like, that might be how you want to use it, but that's not how it's phrased. That's not like, it's not like, oh no, I have no other option, must attack. Like, the game's not necessarily encouraging you to use it all the time, but the game's not stopping you.
I don't know. The last line of it only applies when you're actually looking to rough someone up, which means that a threatening shove, like, it's saying that in any other situation where you're not trying to fundamentally shift the direction of the game, you should use shut someone down. To me,
no, it's saying if you are trying to really physically hurt someone, it's a lash out physically. If you're trying to kind of toss them around, but you don't have physical harm intent, then it shuts someone down instead. The point it's making is that there's a delineation between really trying to hurt someone versus just trying to fuck with them a little bit.
Right, but you are not going to physically actually try to hurt someone unless there is something done in the first place. Or else
that's like your opinion, bro. That's a you. No, because there's nothing about the mechanic, right? Like, sure, the framing of the campaign and the framing of the kind of characters you're playing, it might not make a lot of sense for you to just go out and attack somebody. But the mechanic simply says, if you're trying to hurt a motherfucker, you're lashing out physically. So if I walk up to someone, pull a pocket knife, and stab that bitch, I'm lashing out physically. Whether I was backed into a corner or not, that's what I'm doing. There's no reactivity there. I mean, you know, perhaps I probably have a vendetta against the character or whatever, but like on a minutia moment, there's no reaction there.
That's kind of what I'm saying though, is like it requires implied context in order to be like a valid move that you would use to follow the principles of the game, which is follow logic.
but by that logic, you're just calling everything a reaction ever. Like me breathing is a reaction to oxygen being in the air. Like you can't broaden it so much to just say everything's always a reaction to something. Like that's not the point of the mechanics themselves. Like you're broadening it too much. And again, you can use them that way if you want to use them that way, but that's not like a rule. It's not like a saving throw in D&D, which is explicitly mechanically only a reaction to something happening to you. Right? In the case of Monster Hearts, keep your cool is one where it is explicitly you're responding to something happening to you. Right? Like they are in there, but lash out physically is not one of them. And I don't understand why you're trying to broaden it. So like I don't even understand
because keep your cool, lash out physically, and run away are inherently fight or flight responses. Like they kind of have like.
Sure, like in real life, but that's not what we're really talking about here. We're not talking about real life. We're talking about how does the mechanic function as a mechanic, and whether you as the player are making the action proactively or reactively. Like the difference between a proactive action and a reactive action when we're talking about a mechanic in a tabletop sense is, did the GM ask me or did I say I'm doing the thing? Right? And in the case of lash out physically or like gaze into the abyss, I probably told the GM that I'm doing that. In the case of keep your cool, the GM is probably telling me that's what's happening here based on what's going on. Not all, and there can also be, because of the way the moves are written and structured, there can also be some gray area between that. Like that line can get wishy-washy on purpose, like by design. But it's, I'm not even clear as to why you're taking umbrage with the issue of them all being in a reactive thing anyway.
Well, the umbrage comes from the use of turn someone on, and my belief that why you can use it that way and why I believe it works that way is because I see the moves as inherently reactive.
Okay, but when in real life, if a person goes to hit on somebody else, like there doesn't have to be a reaction of any kind. They don't have to necessarily be responding to anything. They might just think that person's attractive, I'm gonna go hit on them, and then they do it. Like, how is that not a proactive action?
I suppose. I really can't fight you on that one. Like,
but that's what turn someone on is, like at its core. Like, I'm gonna go hit on this person, and then also by extension of hitting on them, I'm gonna get something out of it. Right? Like,
I guess clearly there's a disconnect somewhere in my brain that I can't square the circle. So I don't know.
Like I said, the point that I'm making is that the game doesn't want you making persuasion checks, right? The game doesn't want you to be like, roll dice, NPC, give me what I want, right? The game is saying you have to either, basically the game is making you a little uncomfortable on purpose, because your two main avenues for trying to persuade someone to do a thing that you want are either bribery of some nature, right? Temptation, or sexual manipulation. Like the game is like, these are your two main options. It wants you to feel a little uncomfortable about it. It doesn't want you to be like, I can just use my high persuasion stat to get what I want. Right? Like it doesn't want you doing that. That's outside of the scope. In the same way that the move in Apocalypse World is called seduce or manipulate, right? It's not called talk and have a chat. It's you're seducing them or you're manipulating them. It's a negative connotation either way. And Monster Hearts is doing a somewhat similar thing, although it's splitting it into two moves, and the context of the framing of the moves is different, but it's kind of a similar idea. And again, it's all against that D&D my dice get me whatever I want, my roll gets me whatever I want, right? It's against that kind of style of play, which is not even me saying that style of play is good or bad. I'm just saying it's working against that. It doesn't want to operate in that space.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking of response. Okay.
I wasn't sure for a second.
No, I'm listening. I just I don't know. Like I said, there is clearly some sort of problem that I have with this that I either cannot.
Well, you gotta
describe
keep
or
in
back
mind,
or
You gotta keep in mind that Monster Hearts is trying to invoke a very narrow band of character interaction, right? And playstyle. Like, it wants you to do a very specific thing. It's not trying to be a super open game. It's trying to be like, this game is about weird, uncomfortable, kind of horny monster people. And like, that's it. Like, you can't, it doesn't really want you moving beyond that. And it has made it's made it quite difficult to do so.
Yes, you're right. But I feel like you can just as easily, like with literally no problems whatsoever, turn someone on in a non-sexual sense and still get every effect out of it that you would need.
I mean, ultimately, like, can you? Yeah. You're just kind of going against the designer's idea and
but
like,
okay, I think that's
you to do.
It doesn't feel that way because it can seamlessly.
I think it is. Because, I mean, I don't know. You look at the wording, like the bullet points on turn someone on, right? And it says, I give myself to you, I promise something I think you want, or I get embarrassed and act awkward. Those are all a little charged, right?
They are, but that kind of like, yes, they are charged, but they can be.
It's not just like I'm having a chat and you convinced me.
Right, but it has always spoken to me in the way that Powered by the Apocalypse games very intentionally play with language. Because in any situation, like, you can just turn someone on to get what you want from them persuasively. And they can give themselves to you, they can agree with whatever you're doing. They can promise something that they think you want. You're like, all right, fine, I'll do you a favor. Or they get embarrassed or feel awkward. They're,
Here's the thing about the play on language in this scenario. If you are not trying to turn them on, the move doesn't trigger. Just by virtue of that's what triggers the move, is turning someone on. So if you're not doing that, technically the move doesn't activate. That's the whole if you do it thing. So like, if you want to personally say it can be a persuasion thing that is not sexually charged, you can, but ultimately you're ignoring what the move says. You're choosing to activate the move when the game technically would say that it doesn't activate.
No, that's what I don't think I'm ignoring. I think it is like this weird from a certain point of view thing that it feels like Powered by the Apocalypse games in general play with freely.
No, because if you want to do it, you have to do it. And the name of the move is the thing you are doing. Ergo, if you're not doing the thing, you're not rolling. It's not turning out. Like, that's the way. I mean, I can't necessarily speak for the designer of Monster Hearts, but that's explicitly the way that Apocalypse World describes it. Like, if you are not actively doing what the move says to do, then it just doesn't happen. And it's like that on purpose. It's intentional.
I guess. I mean, we're going to be talking like this for another hour, because this is something I have thought about a lot for this game, so we might as well just move on. I will concede the point, but like, again,
ultimately you can do it that way. I'm just telling you that you're stepping beyond the bounds of what the game is telling you to do.
That's where kind of where the disagreement lies, which is why I'm like, yes, I will concede the point, but we probably should.
Okay, I mean, listen, go ask for other opinions, I guess, at this point. Like, I don't know.
I will. No, for sure. I'm not trying to stick my feet in the sand to be an asshole. I just genuinely disagree with the expression of the rules.
let's just put it this way. You should look at the wording of the moves a little more literal. That's what I will say. Which bullet was that? Hold on. Consider. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, if anyone's still following the plot here, I don't know how we got that far afield in the first place. I don't remember.
It was running into friction with Monstards. That was like.
I know that was the basic idea, but I know there was something else in there that got things rolling. All right, so if you've gone through the step of trying to figure out if the game is what you thought it was initially. So if the game isn't fully what you thought it was at first and is actually a little bit differently now that you've played it a little bit and got a better understanding, you're like, oh, it's a little different than what I was expecting. Then you have to kind of say to yourself, can you / are you willing to hack it up to the point of turning it into what you do want? And that question's gonna vary a lot for every person. And I don't necessarily have any particularly strong advice on how you can make that call, but you know, obviously tabletop games, you can hack them. Say to yourself, would it be easy to hack this into a position to make the game do what I thought it was going to do initially? Or is that going to be a fucking nightmare? Or do I want something so different from what the game is that it's going to be just too much hacking, it's not worth it? And you just got to kind of assess that scale personally and then decide from there, because that shit's going to be work. Obviously. Might not be a lot of work, or it might be a lot of work. You got to figure that out on a game-by-game basis, or even potentially on a mechanic-by-mechanic basis. Like, maybe you're really only getting screwy with one particular subset of mechanics, and then it could be a little easier to just hack up those mechanics. Then, so you've gone through all that. You also might want to figure out if it's actually your players that aren't connecting with the system, and that the friction is being caused because the players are not getting it or not liking it or whatever, and then you as the GM are responding to their confusion or frustration, which is then in turn creating confusion or frustration for you as the GM with the system. This point can kind of encompass all of the previous points I made, just reassess them on the player side of the table. So like all the other things I said, just flip them. This last one can kind of apply to all of those. So it might require more steps, a little more work to fix if the players are the ones that are actually having, like, you as the GM thought, oh, this game is not gelling with me. Actually, it's not gelling with your players. Then you have to go, okay, how am I dealing with that?
That one is certainly a much fucking trickier problem. And I've had a couple of those before, like where a play, like I remember specifically in Hellscapes, there were certain characters who were like, well, so Paladin was one of them where it's like, you know, I want to upgrade the car. And it's like, all right, well, the amount of time and effort it takes you to upgrade the car is like kind of mathematically, it's the making magic items thing, right? Where you're like, but the game, practically speaking, will not allow for this kind of time frame. So what the fuck is even the point? And he had a lot of problems with that, with trying to upgrade the car. So I had to make several concessions just to be like, it's what he built his character around. It's something he really cared about. You just gotta let it rock.
Yeah. That, yeah, I mean, that's essentially, I was gonna say that's a little different, but no, yeah, I guess that is basically the player having a struggle with what the system is doing. Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, let it rock, but it could also be a case, like, in that scenario, it was less the misunderstanding part and more just I want the game to do this thing and it's not doing this thing. And yeah, that scenario is actually probably a little bit easier than just full on not getting it. Although, well, of course, still comes with its own crock of problems, obviously.
Well, you know, typically when a character finds, at least for me, when I have problems like that as on the player side, it's because I didn't get the rule, and then it was explained to me, and I went, oh, well, I built my character around this, like, interpretation of the rules, so now I have to either change my character or exist in this, like, zone of not having fun. And I feel like that was how it was for him as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, of course. Like, I'll clearly he'll tell us in the coming week, but
probably. And like I said, this last point of it being on the player side, you can then go back up the bullet point list and do all those steps on the player side. So it's like, you know, have the player stick with it and see, have the player reread, have the player try and figure out, is the issue me not getting it or just not liking it? And, you know, in this case, it was probably a more of an element of just not liking it. And yeah, kind of go through it. You can't force players to do this kind of thing, obviously, but basically the main important element of this little point is that sometimes the struggle you're feeling with the system isn't actually your fault. You just might feel like it is, but it actually is someone else screwing with you and you just didn't realize it. And that's not me like blaming the player. It just might genuinely be their confusion is causing you confusion, or their struggle is causing you a struggle. And then, of course, the very last bullet point, and you know I was going to say this because I had to say this, consider another system.
This is a big one. This is this is the crux of most of our podcast. Play different games.
Play other games. What a surprise. We always come back around it. Yeah, like, you may have had a really strong idea that simply is not going to work with the system that you are currently playing the way that you were hoping it would, but another game out there might. Right? If you wanted to run the open world hex crawl game and you decided you wanted to do it with Apocalypse World, like, it's probably just not going to work. Look around for another system, right? Like, if you want to try and play the hardcore dungeon delver, dungeons are brutal, we need to track every torch, 5e is not doing that for you, but Shadow Dark will, right? So, you know, if you've tried every other step, the very last step is, all right, maybe different game. And, maybe different game. Like, I don't have a lot more to extrapolate on that one because it's a pretty self-evident answer of how to deal, right? Like, try a new game and see how the new game goes. And hopefully, once you try the new game, you don't have to go through all of these same steps with the new game because, wow, that would be dog shit.
Yeah, that'd be fucking ass.
Like, you pick a new system and then you're like, fuck, it's not working again. But I'm sure that happens to people. And yeah, like, basically that's the ripcord option. Try a new game, rip that bitch and do a different one.
Yeah, I mean, like, so this was me with Lancer for sure, or with the mech game that would eventually become the Lancer game, because at first I was like, okay, what's the up and over on players learning something other than 5e? And then I was like, originally, I remember, you probably remember this, I was like, not great.
Not great. Yes.
And then I was like, oh, okay, well, that one 5e hack that I don't know if ever got produced, but the game came out for testing that I have my hands on called Carbon, that has like a full mech, like, battle suit combat section. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we can just use this as a majority and like finagle some shit in a Hellscape style way. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm getting too caught up on the rules. I want to go the opposite direction. And that's when I was looking at Beam Saber. And then I was like, well, Beam Saber doesn't have the modularity that I want. It just can't, given that it's powered by the Apocalypse game. Like, it's not going to have that crunch.
Well, that's a Forge in the Dark game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Beam Saber could have had more of that modularity than it did.
but not the amount that I wanted. Like Lancer really hit the nail on the head for exactly what I wanted.
Like, I know what you mean, but I think there is a lot of room in the Forged in the Dark system for that kind of next level of like character customize. And I don't know that I've seen anyone tap into it. There might be a game that has done it that I just don't know about, obviously. But I think the room is there in a Blade style system, like in a Forged in the Dark system. You just gotta like kind of reassess from the start a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I see the untapped potential is what I'm saying.
I don't, but I will take your word for it. You've played it more than I have. You've played the system more than I have.
I see there's these little like how do I put it? There's these little like windows within Blades in the Dark that I can see how you could like expand it further. I mean that's true of a lot of games, obviously, but I think Blades in particular actually. I remember giving me quite a few ideas at the time of running it, and clearly, obviously, it gave other people ideas too because Forged in the Dark games became a thing. So, you know,
right. So, but I feel like could you really go past for example, like, and this is not a Forged in the Dark game, but it is, you know, they are both offshoots of PBTA. The like fighter in Dungeon World, and you get more modular than like ignores armor to some degree, a little bit more damage. Roll modifiers, like
yes, because it would be, but it just would be less. It would be less about the numbers and more like fictional focused. Like it wouldn't be, you know, like in D&D, if the Sword of Undead Slaying is like if the enemy is an undead type, you deal double damage and ignore their resistances or whatever, right? Like that would be kind of the D&D method. To do a similar thing in Dungeon World, it would be if this blade attacks an undead enemy, they cannot reconstitute themselves, and you know, one solid strike, you know, removes them from the fight completely. Like it would be more of a fictional emphasis. Or it would be more of a fictional bonus type situation rather than numerical, just because the game is a little bit less focused on the numerical, although Blades, I think, has a decent amount of numerical wiggle room within it. It's kind of like the, what was that? It's like the ability that the Whisper gets in Blades to like summon lightning and or like make a storm. It doesn't have a lot of numerical, mechanical, this is what makes it good parts to it, but it's like fictionally, you are literally making a storm happen, and fictionally, there's a lot of powerful potential within that.
Yeah, I mean, that brings me to a separate thing that I have with Monster Hearts, where, and this might be PBTA in general, and it's the narrative first games that I think do this, is how much extrapolation should you do reasonably? Right? Like I ran into the problem when we were playing with Fran, right? Like, well, my character at least hitting a normal person does 3 harm. Or at least 2 harm, sorry. Which is like, that's enough to put someone in the hospital. So would it not make sense that I have a degree of higher than normal borderline super strength if a punch to the jaw can do that to somebody? You know? Like, and then I've had situations in my game where players have been like, oh, well, I'm this thing. Does it not make sense that I should just be able to do this thing, even though it's not listed in my moves? And like,
well, I mean, sometimes sort of, kind of, but I feel like you're jumping through a couple of hoops of assumption on that one. A little bit. I don't remember why is your character's baseline harm higher?
Because I have a higher than normal, or no, I literally have a move that's if I do things in a certain order, I just do more harm. I just do +1 harm. You can get to 1 attack does 3 harm if you get the 2 moves that up your harm.
I mean, it depends on the fictional justification and the context of what the ability, like why the ability is giving you extra harm. For starters, some of them, sometimes it's more evident than others. I mean, I can't think of a great example off the top of my head right now, but like the idea is that sometimes it will be fictionally evident, and sometimes there will be a little bit of a it will be a little bit unclear, and in those situations the GM sort of just has to interpret the language between themselves and the players. But it really is the follow the fiction. So, like, for example, if the reason your character deals 1 extra harm is because they have like they have like magical spirit claws that like cut through a person's soul, and so every time they attack someone it hurts more because you're like hurting their spirit. Fictionally, okay, that doesn't necessarily imply that your character is stronger. But if the move is like you do extra harm because you just hit that fucking hard, then yes, it is kind of implying you are just stronger. It really is look to the logical fiction. I forget how Apocalypse World describes this whole thing, but it's basically the idea of follow the fiction and kind of do what makes sense. And what makes sense also can adjust depending on the situation too, right? Like if the characters are in a different dimension or something, the rules may change, and then what makes sense will shift. But it really all harkens back to follow the fiction, and don't follow the fiction instead of the numbers is really what we're getting at, right? Like D&D is follow the numbers. If you have a +5 in strength, you can reasonably lift X amount, whereas Apocalypse World is follow the fiction. Even if you have a +2 hard, that doesn't necessarily translate to you being able to do X, Y, or Z thing, but it could.
I suppose.
There's more layers of answer to this, but like it's too much to get into.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm going by the harm, like what it says for harm, right? If you get a solid hit to the temple with an aluminum bat, 2 harm. If you get hit by a car, that's 3 harm.
Yeah.
So in a situation where I can deal 3 harm, I'm effectively hitting someone with a car with a punch.
Yes.
So that would assume that I could rip a subwoofer off a broken leg, or I can lift a subwoofer off a person's broken leg. Now, granted, I couldn't do 2 harm at that moment, but like presumably even then I still have a better shot than someone else.
Side note, I'm not seeing a move that lets you do more harm. I'm looking, but
Rebel with the cause.
I don't. What? If it not just for yourself or someone else, you may deal an additional harm against creature rolls. Okay. So I would say no, that doesn't imply that you're stronger. Because that specifically says when you fight not just for yourself, but for someone else. So it's like the extra harm is that added like vigor, that like, it's like the mom lifting the car off the baby because the baby's hurt. The mom can't always lift the car, right? That kind of idea. I would argue that doesn't mean you're just like ultimately stronger. Now, what I would argue is that if it's a situation where that concept, Rebel for a cause, applies, but you aren't trying to hurt someone, then I might be like, okay, yeah, in this scenario, you can potentially be stronger. Like that might make sense, but I wouldn't necessarily say it means you're just always stronger. But that's following the fiction of how that move is worded, specifically when you fight not just for yourself part of it, but for someone else. But like that's me as an MC. That would be me ruling it as MC. Someone else might rule it a little differently.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know, because I'm running into this thing. To be fair, I just care less in my Monster Hearts game. I just give less of a shit about the like.
Harm is also not always 1-to-1 literal in that way. Like, yeah, I know that it describes like 2 harm is like getting hit with a bat. It's not always literally like an increase of physical damage. It can carry a degree of like emotional or narrative or like there can be context sort of adding to the harm. Like there is an element of that. in the same way that like the Battle Babe in Apocalypse World can have 2 armor when they're naked or nearly naked, it is like there's an element of like cinematic, fictional context is applying this thing in a less literal way.
There is, I don't know. This might just be one of my few eternal grudges with the Powered by Apocalypse system.
Yes, I know you hate good games. I know.
Follow the fiction, and then you ask, especially with something like Werewolf. Like one of my Werewolf player had this question where Siffy was like, "I'm a werewolf. Am I not just big? Can I not just punch? Like, am I not just huge?" And I was like, "I mean, you're a werewolf, so like, yeah. I mean, I guess."
Can just punch? Yeah.
She was being facetious. I believe she was trying to rip a door off its hinges.
Oh, yeah. Look, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like that's what I'm trying to. You're okay. This is the thing that's okay. I think this is what's confused me.
The thing that I want is, I guess I kind of want definitives without up to MC interpretation. And
okay, but here's the thing. You're saying that you're having an issue with the game, but you're literally doing exactly what the game is telling you to do. Like you're doing it. The player is like, am werewolf, can rip off door, and you go, fictionally am werewolf, yes, can rip off door. That's you did it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know I did it.
That's all the game wants you to do.
I know I did it. I don't want, on some degree, I don't want to have to like deliberate. I want game to tell me, is werewolf can rip off door, you know?
Okay, but this is literally, you're never gonna get that.
I know, like, game is uninterested. It's one of my few points of contention with a system that I otherwise quite like.
Yeah, I mean, you're just asking for something you're never gonna get. So I you know, like,
you have to do this weird thing where, again, like you have to sort of make strange equivalencies by looking at harm and like doing some like implication of the rules,
or just following logic, right? Like, because with the werewolf thing, you're just following logic. Granted, it's, you know, horseshit fictional logic, but like it is logic in the sense that we all kind of have a cultural understanding of what a werewolf is, right? Like,
yeah, Yes, I get it. It is frustrating.
I mean, I guess, I don't know what to tell you. If you find it that frustrating, then it's just not a game for you to run, is really all I can say at that point.
Well, I mean, I don't think having umbrage with one specific aspect of the rules is enough to change games entirely. It's not a core thing. It is just like a thing that I find frustrating.
But that's a pretty big element of the system. So if you I feel like if you take a lot of umbrage with it, I don't know. It's kind of a tough sell to be running it.
Not really. Like,
it's a pretty core element.
We talked about it's, you just kind of go, all right, I disagree and I don't like it, but like I'm just going to look past it.
Right, you can, but I'm saying if it bothers you that much, then perhaps just not for you to run is what I'm saying. Like I don't know how much it bothers you, but I'm getting the interpretation that it bothers you a lot. So
no more than like prepping combat does for the common D&D like dungeon master. Like, it's a thing that I have to contend with that frustrates me, and I wish it didn't do this, and I wish there was more clear answers, but
okay, but do you understand that if it started doing what you want, it would open a whole can of worms that would have like never ending, like you'd just be like limitlessly, or you just never be satisfied. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, if the game starts being like, gives you a bullet point, are werewolf, so can rip off door, you now open a can of worms that you need to have these kind of bullet point elements to like every playbook, and then you start getting into different interpretations of the same kind of thing, right? Like,
well, so you can sort of
cultural interpretations, right? Like, werewolves are one thing to American versus one thing to like a European person or whatever. Like,
well, yes, but it
opens a bit of a can of worms.
You can make concessions, like you can compromise this pretty easily. Like, if there's a part of the book that says like monsters are just that, they are not normal people, you can expect monsters to have abilities that might seem superhuman. Like, that's a definitive answer that tells me as much as I need to know, given what I need to know.
But that's not. But
it's not exactly what I want, but it's a compromise I'd accept.
That a definitive, as I'm saying, like, I wouldn't call that a definitive answer, but I still feel like even just
that's what I said. It's
just doing that. I still feel like there's a can of worms being opened up there.
There is, no matter what. Anytime you make a definitive statement, like the harm thing, right? We just agreed that harm can be an emotional thing, but they don't really describe that emotional harm. They almost always describe it as just physical harm. So the game already does that. Like, you can't really be afraid to make those.
I didn't necessarily say it can be an emotional. I didn't necessarily say it can be an emotional thing. I'm saying it can have a little bit of a broader narrative context. I'm not saying you can like hurt someone's feelings and that counts as harm, but I don't know. I don't really know what else to tell you. Like, it's just not gonna do that.
It could though. Like, it could easily, and I genuinely think it wouldn't stray too far from what the game already has. Especially something that minor, just being like monsters, you can just expect them to do weird things.
I mean, that one example for Monster Hearts, like, I suppose, but I don't know. I still feel like you just have to be always cognizant of the slippery slope that is trying to design for, right? This is what got us that old school game design. Fucking Christ, we are so off topic. This is what got us that old school game design where the game that was about playing, superheroes had like 45 pages of rules for how to furnish your apartment. And it's because they were trying to design a rule or a thing or a comment on every single, like, every little edge case that they could ever think of, right? This is also why 3.5 had such a bloated list of feats, because they were trying to design like every little corner, like every style of cool hero they could possibly think of. And it becomes such a slippery slope that if you take a system that's intentionally a little open, more than a little, that's intentionally open and about following a fictional basis like Apocalypse World, if you take that and then try and start building in edge cases stuff, then it's even more of a problem, because the open system is now sort of in a way being a little less open or trying to cover edge case. Like, I just feel like you need to always be wary of that slippery slope, because I don't want 45 pages of apartment furniture.
No, look, and I totally agree. Although, and I disagree. I think we are 100% on topic, because we are literally talking about friction within rule sets that we like, or are running. So I think we're perfectly on topic here. But
sure,
I think when it comes to like yes, I'm aware of the slippery slope, and I don't want to know that werewolves, like, I don't necessarily want the in Monster Hearts, at least, the werewolf the apocalypse, like, yes, a werewolf can rip a tank, like a tank barrel off of the tank. I don't need to go that far. But if you tell me in the start of the rules, monsters are more abled than most normal people can be, right? And then in the werewolf section, it's like werewolves are known for their unmatched physical strength. That's all I need to know, right? Like, I don't have to know like what the tonnage that werewolf can bench press. But if you tell me, and werewolves are the only ones that bring up how physically strong they are, you go, okay, well, werewolves are probably the strongest monsters in the system. They're the only one that get a statement about it. So if my werewolf player goes, I could rip a door off its hinges, right? I'm like, well, you got that unmatched physical strength the game likes to talk about, so yeah, do it,
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess I immediately think, I don't know. I just think how it can go bad fast, I guess.
No, I get that. I do. I think the disconnect for you, or the disconnect between us, right, is that we can, like, you are probably thinking about this in a more standardized Powered by the Apocalypse, where things are explained well and the narrative is described well, and you're given the exact information you need to get as far as you need to get. But you and I are both aware that Monster Hearts is skint on information at times.
Yeah,
and
Monster
I want
Hearts is skinned,
that information
and
back. Right? Like,
if
I would
if we're only talking Monster Hearts specifically, sure, I can see the element of it being overly skint. Like, I guess my thing is just ultimately the flow of it works for me well enough that I'm okay just rocking and rolling with what I got and then going from there. Like,
right, yeah, but like in the same vein
like,
that people might not have any problems with the challenge rating system, but you and I fucking hate it.
Right, no, I know, I get that. I'm just saying, I guess I ultimately don't feel the need because in my mind, it gels well enough as is. And something like the werewolf player asking me if they could rip the door off, I would simply say yes and not even have a second thought about it. Like, it wouldn't be a deliberation. I mean, it'd be a deliberation for a second or two of it. I'd be like, well, yeah, okay, yeah, right? Like, it'd be a half a second of thought, but it wouldn't be a long deliberation because I am confident enough in what PBTA games are trying to do that I would roll with it and be relatively confident that I made the correct decision. And funnily enough, D&D actually tells you to do that, but then because of the numberiness, the mathiness of how it's designed, I personally do not feel confident calling it on rip in D&D as much.
Oh, see, that's interesting because I am more confident calling it on rip in D&D. I play it very hard and fast with I don't, because I know how bloated constantly asking for rolls can be in D&D. So when I ran Hellscapes, by the end, it was passives on everything. Like, unless they were like in the middle of a gunfight, I was like, oh, you got 24 strength, so yeah, you can probably rip that tank in half. Because it just didn't give a fuck at that point. Well, and I think
the passive thing is a slightly different. That's a little different because that is a mechanic the game is giving you. We're talking about finding a space where the game is not necessarily giving you a mechanic. But for me, the reason I don't feel as confident doing it with 5e is because as soon as I make an on-rip call in 5e, my brain immediately goes, yeah, but does the math check out there? Right? Like, does that math make sense? Does the math flow there? And maybe that's just because I fucking suck at math, so I just always assume I'm wrong. Maybe that's where this is coming from. I'm willing to make a call in Apocalypse World or some other PBTA game because I'm making a narrative decision, whereas in D&D, I feel like I'm always making a math decision, at which I always assume I am incorrect at.
Interesting. Okay.
Every time I do any kind of figuring the math out while running, I assume I'm wrong first. Because I know how I be. Well, so and like, I'll commonly look at 8 plus 4 and go, that equals 10. And it doesn't. It doesn't equal 10.
I don't know, like, so in a situation, right, like, I play the game how I would run the game, right? So I think the most famous one of this in recent memory is the sack of flour thing, right? In my head, sure. I would rule the sack of flour explodes and does a little extra damage because it's a vapor explosion, right? It inherently has to do more, logically.
That's what
No, I know, that's what you did.
Mostly what I did.
Mostly. No, I'm not saying like you failed there as a GM at all. But like, to me, that shit, my brain went, okay, ABC, where you were like, wait, hold on, let me think about this for a second. Let me see if this math works. Like,
yes, because the reason I'm having that thought is because when D&D has rules for things like improvised weapons and like, you know, rules for how much damage the dynamite should do. So immediately, as soon as you're like, I'm going to whip out this unorthodox method of doing damage, my next immediate thought is, how much damage should it be? And is this damage on curve for what makes sense, both in universe, but also mechanically? Because if I say that the flower explosion causes 20 d8s worth of damage, you guys are just going to use flower for everything because that's way out of curve of your current damage, and you're just going to become the flower grenadiers. But if I say it does a d4 and that's it, you're probably never going to do it again because it's not that worth it. Right? So I immediately go, what damage makes sense on curve? And I'm not confident enough in my ability to whip that math out on the fly that I assume I'm correct when I make that on the fly math decision.
Okay. I can give you genuine advice that I use for this, and you're going to think this is funny. I call it fireball math. Everything is D6s. That's not standard damage. Fireball is as strong as a hand grenade, and I just mental that out.
Sure, and that is, I think, pretty much kind of what D&D wants you to do. But the thing that throws me off with that, it's not necessarily a bad idea. The only thing that throws me off with it is that the game itself has stuff like how much damage an improvised weapon should do, and like how much damage alchemist fire does, and like how much damage dynamite does, and those all operate on these like different damage scales. And D&D loves to play hide the ball with a lot of its under the hood math. So I can't reverse engineer that shit. You know, I'm not good enough at math to break it down.
You can sort of hither-thither it, right? Like if you're like, okay, well, the fireball is 8d6, alchemist fire is 1d6. And if alchemist fire is basically a Molotov, then a pressurized version would probably be a little bit more effective. So it's probably 2d6. Like,
I mean, you're bringing a degree of real world logic in here that I don't like. Also, I don't know the strength of a Molotov versus like a grenade or shit. I've never thrown or used one of those. You know what I mean? Like, I get like how much damage does a grenade do? You know what I'm saying? Well, actually, that's a bad example because there is an answer to that in the book. But you know what I mean?
Right. Well, yes. I mean, there is, and this is where I'm kind of at fault, right? Where I am sort of making arbitrary decisions when the game is not directly giving them to me. I know I just complained about this.
Yes.
But I feel like I get more of I feel like the math backing in D&D makes me more comfortable, where I feel like I have no backing in Monster Hearts. Other than the narrative, which is an innately nebulous thing that is not a concrete.
So you're willing to rip it on the math, but not willing to rip it on like a story beat?
Well, so here's the thing. When you start ripping it on story beats, you get into a slippery slope, at least in my opinion, where, and this is something I'm having in Monster Hearts, where characters are just like, can I just do this thing? And I'm like, yes, like, or a character's like, oh, because my backstory is this thing, can I just do this thing? And then, you know, at some point, some characters are kind of fishing for the yes, and some are trying to make a legitimate point. But if you you have to arbitrate those things on the fly, and then you're never really there's no real winning that situation. You just kind of have to agree above board to do it. But that it can lead to some sticky situations that I'm running into in Monster Hearts. Now, thankfully, I just don't give a shit about the general balance or.
I don't know. I'm so perplexed by the idea that you're more concerned about ripping a narrative decision, which is essentially like a story beat, versus ripping the math, because there's so much more wiggle room on a narrative decision. And I feel like the chance of a player getting feeling like it's unfair or whatever is lower, because you're ultimately following the fiction, following what makes sense. Generally the decision you come up with is gonna make sense in the moment. You're not going to make a completely asinine out-of-pocket decision most of the time. So no,
it's you're not, but it feels less. It feels like you've got less ground to stand on. It feels like the ground is less solid.
But the ground you're standing on is the narrative in the moment.
Right. So okay, a perfect example is so Fran is playing a Fae. She very specifically is I want to play a little fire spirit thing. And I'm like, okay, it's not what Fae naturally do, but that's how you want to spin it. Fair enough. That sounds cool. And then she kind of was because I'm stuck in my darkest self, I'm made of fire. Can I just kind of will-o-wisp
shit
in directions? Right? Because I'm literally made of weightless thing? Can I just kind of fly? And then I'm like, okay, well, like the ghost has that. We have a ghost. She can't fly because she doesn't have that thing. I think she does, but I didn't think about it at the time. Right? Like, those are the calls that I feel less concrete in. Whereas if I use, as I coined it, fireball logic, in the same situation, the character's like, well, I'm made of fire and I can shoot little wispy like pew-pews. And I go, okay, well, like, firebolt at like this level that you're at is like a 2d6, so like you can probably.
She wasn't asking to shoot pew-pews though. She was asking to fly.
No, I know, but like, yes, the equivalent is not perfect, but you can see where the logic lies.
I guess I just don't understand why you couldn't just say, yeah, sure, you can fly.
I did, but then the question would then come up, well, she's not a fae, none of her moves say she can fly, I'm a ghost, one of my moves is that I have to physically take an advancement to fly, and my whole thing is I am a spirit, why does gravity weigh me down, right? You can, now Cass didn't make that argument, but she could have, and I would be like, you know what I mean? Like,
right, and then the mechanical argument, the mechanical answer, if you're looking at it as a gameplay mechanic, is like, well, it's not something I'm giving her all the time. It's something that she asked for in the moment because of her darkest self, which is something that already is kind of giving her a downside, right? So it made sense to me to give it to her as her darkest self. You as the ghost can spend, essentially it's all about what does it cost, right, to have the ability. If the cost is I have to go into my darkest self to be able to do that, that's a pretty hefty cost. If the cost is I take a level up advancement, that's a cost one time and then you just got that shit free money, right? So that's a perfectly reasonable trade-off from a gameplay, game design standpoint in my head.
I suppose it just doesn't feel it doesn't feel that way for me.
I mean, you get what I'm saying though, right? Like
the darkest self is yes, the like darkest self. The risk,
darkest self is effectively a debuff.
Yes, you are willing to give more reward for higher risk, and I think that's a fair interpretation. Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe my brain feels more comfortable with the numerical backing because it is a sort of an infallible touchstone. If I reason that the majority of the damage in D&D is built on D6.
That's where I really can't. It's not infallible. That's really the. It's not. No, infallible.
And it's like not literally infallible, but like a lot of the math, like most of the math in D&D that is not skill rolls is based on the D6. You see it.
You're still ultimately making a call that is going to mechanically help or hinder someone, you know? So you adding this extra impetus, this like extra weight to the narrative call versus the math call, I just don't really understand, when ultimately it's like, it's a call that may help them or may hurt them. Like that is what it is, like at when you boil it all down.
It is, but there are there are more touchstones, there are more grounded touchstones to one in my brain than the other. Narrative is a nebulous shared space, but numbers are numbers. And when you attach that narrative shared space to numbers.
But the nebulous shared space is what we're all operating anytime we do a role-playing game.
Except you aren't always. Like, you are operating in the narrative and the numbers. Now, one might put more impetus on on one than the other, but they are both
always, no matter.
Inextricably
you are
linked.
Always in the narrative nebulous space, no matter what. That's the only way to play role-playing games. It's like the only way to.
It's not.
There's no other way to do it
because the numbers are.
That's what they are.
The numbers are always going to be the arbiter of the narrative. They
are still operating within that space. You're still making calls on when the numbers hit the table based on that narrative space.
Yes, right? in like a coaxial, codependent way. Yeah.
Yeah, like the numbers don't appear. The numbers don't appear if there's no narrative for them to appear based on.
Right, but then the results don't appear unless the rules state that the numbers are required.
Yeah.
And results have to happen through the numbers for the game to happen, otherwise it's not a game.
Yeah, well, there's ways to design games without the number part, but yeah.
I mean,
there are games that do not use dice or math of any kind that exists.
Even something, okay, kinda, because even something like Dread that doesn't directly use math or numbers, there are, like, you start playing with percentiles with how, like, the chances to drop the tower are based on how many locks you pull. Like, numbers are inextricably linked no matter what you do.
well, that's not not the one I was thinking of, but sure. There's games that just have like prompts and like choices. It I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you.
I think it's just two separate perspectives on the role of these things in the game. I don't necessarily think either one of us are right.
No, I'm just saying, I don't know. I just feel like you're getting a little unfairly mad at the game for doing a thing that it never was trying to do.
No, I'm not. No, I'm getting mad at a thing that I'm saying that it should do. I don't really care if it was trying to do it or not. That's sort of irrelevant to me. In my opinion, I think it should do these things. And again, at the lowest level of compromise of like, just say something that tells me narratively where I can ballpark a normal character's ability to. I don't need hard and fast. I don't need tonnage. I don't need a specific example. Just say that they can act more or less.
I just don't think it's fair to get annoyed at a game for trying to do a thing that it had like no intention of ever even doing or going that like.
But I don't know that it doesn't like. I don't know that
I guess
it didn't
you don't
have
know
that
100%.
Like, there's no way to know. When you start playing with damage numbers, and you start giving those damage numbers soft equivalencies to real world harm, you have to imply a certain level of that to some degree. Whether or not they really wanted to commit to it, and they were just kind of hinting at it, that's something we'll never know. But like, there is an impetus, no matter how small, there to assume potential. You know.
All right, we gotta fucking put this horse to bed, Jesus Lord.
We do, yes. We're at 2 hours. I did not think we were gonna go this long, and Brett. I was gonna say Brett's gonna kill us, but I'm gonna kill Brett. So I think we've leveled out.
Why you're killing Brett, but all right.
Because we're trying to have Lancer tomorrow, and everyone's like super excited to play. And he's like, "What if I just didn't show up?" And I was like, Brett, here's the fun thing. I don't actually have to threaten you because everyone else in the chat will, and literally everyone else did.
Fair enough. All right. That has been us.
Yes. Something. Follow us on your social media platform of choice.